The one thing I stopped doing that changed my business. Hello. Welcome back to my podcast for women in direct selling and network marketing. Today, I'm going to start by asking you a question. Are you ready? How many opportunities have you talked yourself out of? Because you were worried about what someone else might think. All right, I want you to answer that question. Maybe you've thought, I'd love to do a Facebook Live, but what if nobody watches? What if I forget what I was going to say? I should probably do more reels, but what if I look silly? And I'm just going to tell you, you don't need to dance. I really want to post more consistently, but people probably think I post too much already. Oh my goodness, I've heard that from so many times, so many women. Or maybe you've even stopped yourself from talking about your direct selling or network marketing business because you didn't want people to think you were one of those people. And haven't we all heard that judgment over the years around direct selling, network marketing, MLMs, all those sorts of things, right? Now, if any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know something, right? You are definitely not the only one. And I know that sometimes you can feel like you're the only one in that situation. You are absolutely not, right? And I used to think exactly the same, right? And looking back now on my time in direct selling, I honestly believe the one thing that changed my business, it wasn't Facebook. And you guys know I love Facebook. It's an amazing tool to help you grow your direct selling or network marketing business, right? But it wasn't that changed my business. And it wasn't that there were suddenly better products. And it wasn't that I, learned how to recruit. And hey, I was an amazing recruiter back in the day. It wasn't becoming more experienced. It was actually the day that I stopped letting other people's opinions decide what I was willing to do. Sound familiar? Now, that doesn't mean I suddenly stopped caring what people thought. 100% not, right? Like, we're I don't think many of us ever completely stop caring, right? After all, we are human. We're just human, right? And, we want to be liked. We want to fit in. And we all worry about being judged from time to time, right? I'm sure you do, right? We all do. The difference is that I actually stopped letting those thoughts make my decisions for me. And that changed everything, right? And I want you to hear something. And if you've been in my world for a while, you might have heard me talk about this before. But in case you haven't heard me talk about this before, I want you to hear this, right? You will not be everyone's cup of tea, okay? I want you to hear that again. You will not be everyone's cup of tea, and that is okay, right? When you can take that on board, it makes such a difference, right? What do I mean by that? Look, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Obviously, you're here listening to me. That's why you've decided that you like hearing from me. So, potentially I am your cup of tea. But, maybe you've listened to some other business coaches out there and you're like, yeah, I don't like the way she talks. I don't like what she says. I don't like what she shares. You don't particularly like them, right? They are not your cup of tea, right? And what we need to embrace is that we will not be everyone else's cup of tea, and that's okay. Because just like not everybody else out there is our cup of tea, we honestly cannot expect ourselves to be everyone else's cup of tea. Does that make sense to you? I want you to let me know. Wherever you're listening to this, if you're watching, listening, YouTube, Spotify, on Facebook, let me know, right? Pop it in the comments or send me a DM, right? Does that make sense? Do you understand that if you can accept that you will not be everybody's cup of tea, it is amazingly freeing, right? All right, and I want you to hear that. So when I first started in direct selling, my direct selling business back in 2006, can't believe 2006, like 20 years ago, right? And I did it for 16 years. Look, Facebook wasn't even around back then. Can you believe that? Do you actually remember a world without Facebook? I do. I do remember a world without Facebook. I'm sure you do. I'm sure many of you absolutely do. If you're more of my demographic as opposed to the younger ones. But look, back then, before Facebook, building a business looked completely different. Maybe you've been in the direct selling or network marketing space for a really long time. Back then it was all about the home parties, catalogs, handing out catalogs, phone calls, coffee catch-ups, that customer service, word of mouth. That's how business grew, right? And then along came Facebook. I started using it around 2009. Maybe you started using it around then. Maybe you started using it later. Mind you, honestly, I mean, look, none of us, I don't think any of us really knew what we were doing, right? We were all just figuring it out as we went, right? I still remember how strange it felt posting something publicly, right? Talking about my business online. And then this is the biggie ones, right? Is like knowing that people like I went to school with or people I worked with years ago, family members, neighbors, people maybe I hadn't spoken to in forever, could all actually suddenly see what I was doing, right? And if I'm being really honest, that felt really uncomfortable, right? Totally uncomfortable. It was something new, right? I wondered things like, what are they going to think, right? Will they think I'm just trying to sell them something? Will their eyes roll every time I post, right? Like we've all had these thoughts, yeah? Let me know. Will they think I've changed, right? I've changed because I've started a business and I'm on Facebook and I'm talking about it, right? Maybe you've had those exact same thoughts, right? I know so many women I coach still do, right? I know occasionally I still do, right? I'm only human, right? I have my moments. And while I'm no longer in the direct sell, with a direct selling company, no longer have a direct selling business, obviously, my coaching business is something I am still putting out there so that all of you wonderful humans out there, can benefit from my tips and my tricks and my knowledge and my stories. And there's sometimes that still feels scary, right? What if people are judging me? Well, you know what? 99.9% of the time I go, whatever, right? You either like me or you don't like me. And if you don't like me, that's okay. Off you go find someone else, right? But if you like me, if you like what I say, you like my energy, I get lots of compliments on my energy. This is just me, right? If you like my energy, if you like the way I teach things, if you like what I share, you like my stories and all that sort of stuff, then absolutely hang out in my world more often, right? I know you're catching this podcast, but you know what? Are you following me on Facebook, right? Are you in my free Facebook community? Have you decided to actually invest more of your time and money and energy to getting coached from me so you get more support and get to learn all the Facebook strategies by being in my Beehive membership program, past, present, maybe you will be in the future, right? But anyway, let me get back on track, right? I hear so many women say these things to me, right? Like, I don't want to annoy people. Have you said these things to me? Have you said these to someone else? Or have you just thought them, right? I don't want to annoy people. I don't want to seem pushy, right? No one wants a pushy Pammy or what is it? Spammy Pammy, pushy, I don't know, pushy Pat, pushy Patricia. They're all a bunch of silly names made up, right? What if people judge me, right? And I completely understand that, right? I was that woman too. And as I just said to you, occasionally still am, right? But the funny thing is, right, most of the fear wasn't actually about strangers. It was actually about the people I already knew. Look, not so much old school friends, because in all honesty, I went traveling overseas at 18 and I lost contact with nearly everybody I went to school with. But I actually live in a small town, right? And I used to go out and do in-home parties in all sorts of places, but also in my hometown. You know what? I was like worried that the other school moms would be judging me, right? Family, what, the extended family, are they going like, what the hell's Penny doing, right? People from previous jobs, all of these things, right? We all have these little ideas and fears, right? And it is, what. And I wonder, and I'm so glad I was able to move past this, because why would you let someone that you hardly ever speak to, kind of have that loudest voice in your head, right? Why would you give them that control, right? It is funny when you think about it, right? It's kind of crazy, really. Someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years can somehow stop you from pressing post on Facebook. Like, how crazy is that? Isn't that incredible? Like, how many times has that happened to you, right? I spent, back before I had my my epiphany about cups of tea, right? I spent far too much time wondering what everyone else thought. Right? Should I post this? Should I delete it? Is this too much? Am I talking about my business too often? Right? Will people unfollow me? Bless and release, right? And while I was busy asking all those questions and second guessing things that I was doing, other women were simply showing up, right? Now, they weren't necessarily, more talented or smarter or more experienced than me. They were just willing to be seen, right? And I've still seen that in the coaching space, right? And that was the difference, right? So eventually, when I had my, bit of a wake-up call, I realized something, and I realized that people whose opinions I was so worried about, they're not building my business, right? I realized it was okay if I was not everybody's cup of tea. And even if they were sitting there judging, like realistically, they weren't helping me build my business. They weren't helping me achieve my goals, right? They weren't going to pay my bills for me if my business didn't work, right? They weren't creating the life I wanted for my family. But somehow I was letting them influence my decisions, right? Because, and it really didn't make sense when I thought about it, right? Really didn't make sense, right? And I realized that I had a choice, right? I could either keep protecting myself from the possibility of being judged, right? Or I could start building the business that I said I wanted, right? Because the truth is, you usually can't do both, okay? If you want to build a successful business, really of any type, but obviously I'm here, here supporting you in the direct selling and network marketing space. But, I've experienced a lot of this too as I've built my coaching business over the last 5.5 years now, right? If you want to build a successful business, people are going to notice, right? They're going to notice you. They're going to see you, right? And some people will cheer you on, and that's brilliant. Love it. But some people won't. Some people will quietly watch. Some people might even judge you, right? But another truth is people will also judge you when you do nothing too, right? There are some people out there, they're just judgy, right? That's just them, right? But we don't need them. We don't need to worry about them because honestly, that is not going to be helpful, right? You may as well just build the business, just do it anyway, right? So one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years is this. People who are busy building their own dreams generally aren't spending much time criticizing yours. They're too busy going and doing their own thing, right? It's actually often the people doing the least who have the most opinions, right? And, once I really understood that, that's when I really started to sort of see this shift, right? And I stopped trying to make everyone comfortable because it didn't really matter. You either liked me or you didn't. You liked my way of doing things, of my style of customer service, the way I talk, all of those things, just like now, right? Just like now, as a business coach for women in direct selling and network marketing is really not any different, right? Either I'm going to resonate with you or I won't. Either you're going to like the way I talk or you won't, right? And that is going to be the same thing for you in building your business. Hopefully you've heard me talk about being a purple cow in a field of dairy cows. If you haven't, and you want to know what I'm talking about, do send me a DM saying purple cow, right? And I will let you know what that's all about, right? But the thing is, you've got to get comfortable, right? Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I say that a lot, but also get comfortable with the fact that not everyone is going to understand what you're doing, right? They're not going to understand your journey. They're just not going to understand, right? And when you accept that, it really doesn't matter, that is incredibly freeing, right? When you can take on board that it is okay, that there are people out there that will never like you, and that's okay. They are not your people. They are not your tribe. That is really, truly incredibly freeing, right? Because instead of wondering, what will they think? I started asking, and I still do this today in my coaching business, who might this help, right? Who might this help? When I started this podcast, gosh, when did I start? Last year sometime. I think October 2025, September 2025. I can't remember. Back in 2025, I started this podcast. And again, there was those bits of, what if no one, what if none of you listen to it, right? What if no one subscribes to my YouTube channel? And then when I added it to Spotify a few months ago, what if nobody subscribes to my Spotify channel to listen to my weekly podcast, right? What if someone else out there that I used to work with or I used to know or whatever goes like, what on earth is Penny doing? Who does she think she is? Like, starting a podcast. But you know what? I was like, you know what? I know that what I can share with you via my weekly podcast is going to be valuable. So this is being done for you, right? This is being done for the woman out there who is trying to build a successful direct selling or network marketing business and is looking for help. And anybody else not in that space who doesn't like me, move on, right? And if you can embrace that in your thinking and in what you're doing in your business, right, it makes a real difference, right? If you start asking yourself, just like I did and still do, who might this help? That one question changes how you show up. It changes the content that you put out there, right? And it will change your confidence, just like it changed my confidence. When I got into direct selling back in 2006, I was a little bit of a shy stay-at-home mum living in a country town, right? And if you'd ever told me 20 years ago when I got into direct selling that I would now be here doing what I am doing today, never would have believed you, right? But because, it suddenly becomes, not about you anymore, right? Like for me, it was like it wasn't about me anymore, right? It was about the woman scrolling Facebook who desperately needed encouragement, was looking for a solution. The woman who was praying someone would show her what was possible, right? And if my post helped her, then it was worth posting. Okay. Even if somebody else rolled their eyes, bless and release, right? That's a trade I would happily make every single day. And I continue to make every single day, right? And I can absolutely tell you something that I've noticed from coaching hundreds of women over the last 5 years. This is still this thought about being judged. It is still one of the biggest things holding women back, right? Not lack of ability, not lack of opportunity, not lack of intelligence. It's the fear of judgment, right? I hear it a lot, okay? Women saying to me, I've recorded the reel 3 times, but I can't post it, right? Trying to be trying for perfection. That's the word I was trying to spit out, right? I filmed a live. I went live in my Facebook group and then I deleted it, right? Have you done that? Let me know. I wrote, they say to me, I wrote the post and then I talked myself out of sharing it, right? I know I should show my face more, but, right? There's always a but. Okay. And I totally get it because I've lived it. But here's what I also want here's what I know, right? What I know, and that's what I can share with you, right? Is the women inside of my Beehive program who make the biggest progress aren't fearless, right? They are simply willing to do things before they feel completely ready, okay? They do the live while they're nervous, right? And they get better at it. They post the reel even though they're worried. Do it anyway, right? They introduce themselves even though it feels uncomfortable. Do it anyway, right? And you know what happens? They realize it wasn't nearly as scary as they imagined. Then they do it again and again, and before they know it, their confidence has grown, right? Not because they waited for confidence before they took the action. It's because they created it through taking the actions, right? And that is really an important difference, right? It's really important difference, right? Confidence doesn't come first, right? Rarely. I won't say it doesn't ever, but rarely does confidence come first, right? Confidence generally follows action, right? And it's certainly been true in my own life, right? Even today, there are still things that make me nervous, right? Like I was saying before, right? Recording the podcast, starting my podcast in the first place. You know what? I'm going to have a full confession moment. I wrote this morning. And it's now, you can have behind the scenes moment. It's now nearly 4:00 in the afternoon. I've freaking procrastinated over recording this all day. God knows why. I really have no idea why I procrastinated about it. Maybe because, I'm talking about that whole confidence thing and the judging thing and everything. I don't know. But you know what? I put on some Robbie Williams and I danced around my office and then I hit the go button. I hit record for you guys because I want you to hear this, right? I want you to hear this because it can make such a difference, right? I get nervous recording podcasts, trying something new, launching something different, speaking in different, at different events and different locations, just none of that feels comfortable all the time. Like that's normal. I'm human, right? But I've learned not to wait until I'm fearless, right? Because if I did, I'd probably still be waiting, right? You know what? The easy thing to do would be, like if you're sitting here and you're like going, I'm trying to earn some extra money, right? You know what? The easy thing would be to go, and I'm not disparaging anyone who does this, but the easy thing would be to like go get a job, doing something, maybe, I don't know, something cruisy. I can't even think of anything at the moment, but, would be to go out, work however many hours a week working for someone else, get locked into that and, bring some money in that way. That's the easy option, right? Trying to build a direct selling or network marketing business, you are to be congratulated because you're not taking the easy path, right? You've taken this leap of faith and made this decision that you want something more and you want to build a successful direct selling or network marketing business that brings you in income, brings you in rewards and recognition and all the things, right? I think that's something that you should be really proud of yourself for doing, because there will be a bunch of women out there watching you going, oh my gosh, I couldn't do what you're doing. There's another type of judgment as well, right? But I think what I want, I remind myself why I started, right? I did that back in direct selling. I've done that as a coach, right? I think about the women that I want to help. I think about the messages I receive from women telling me they finally understand Facebook, right? Or they've had their biggest sales month, or they've finally found their confidence again, right? And suddenly that fear of being judged becomes much smaller than the impact I can make by showing up, right? I hope that resonated. So today I'm going to leave you with one question, right? What would you do this week if you weren't worried what other people thought? Would you finally post that reel? Would you go live? Would you share your story? Would you send me a DM saying, I liked this podcast episode, or tell me more, or, purple cow, because you want to know what I'm talking about there, right? Would you invite someone to look at your business? Would you ask for help? Would you invest in yourself? Because that can be scary too, investing in yourself, right? Because investing in yourself is like you saying, I'm worthy of achieving these things, but I know that I need the help and support and the trainings and the information to be able to do it, right? Would you finally stop hiding, right? Would you put yourself out there on Facebook? Because here's what I've learned over the years, right? The life you are dreaming about, the business you are hoping to build, the women you're meant to help, they are all waiting on the other side of one simple decision. Not to stop caring what people think, right? Because honestly, we're human and it does matter to a degree. But stop letting it decide your future, right? That's really important to I really want you to walk away from that, walk away with that from this episode, right? Stop letting other people's opinions decide your future, right? And if that's something you are struggling with, please know you're not alone, right? And it is one of the reasons I created my Beehive program, right? Not just to teach women Facebook strategies, but actually to help them build the confidence to actually use them. And I see that every day, every week from the women past and present inside of my Beehive membership program, right? Because strategy and confidence go hand in hand, right? One without the other only actually gets you so far. Don't you think? Now, I have loved bringing you this today, but despite the fact that I did procrastinate over this for quite some time, as I shared earlier, I want you to know that I appreciate you listening to my podcast. And you know what? If this episode encouraged you, I would love it if you would share this with another woman in direct selling or network marketing who needs to hear this message as well. And don't forget, I would love to know what is that one thing that you're going to do this week, even though it might feel a little bit scary, because sometimes one brave decision changes everything. I will see you on Facebook. If you haven't found me yet, go find me. If you would like some access to some free training, drop actually probably best bet, send me a DM saying free and I will be in touch. And of course, if you have yet to actually subscribe to my YouTube channel or my podcast on Spotify, go do that. It's completely free. And it just means that you won't ever miss an episode. And if you're only new to my world, you can actually go back and binge me. There's loads of episodes, a lot more episodes on YouTube than there are on Spotify, but they're all out there. Go check them out, have a bit of a binge, and I hope you have loved this episode. I'll catch you all real soon. Bye for now.